Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unreal Training stream. Again, we have Andrew Hurley here, and we're going to be talking about awesome landscape stuff. Today it's world composition.
Oh yeah.
So you want to start us off? Tell us a little bit about world composition and then get into things?
Yeah. Just a quick recap. The first stream I did was on landscapes, so if you guys are unfamiliar with landscapes, especially since this is a getting started, I would definitely reaffirm yourself with landscapes first. I'm looking right into the camera to make sure I'm talking to them. But yeah, go through that and get a good idea of how they work, because we'll be touching on some of that stuff today, but I won't be going into like really in detail about what defines the size of a landscape and stuff. I'll show you that in World Machine and how you kind of use that. Yes, we will be using World Machine, but I already have a predetermined, pre-made tiled landscape, which we'll use in this stream as well. But I'll pull over World Machine and show you guys how to use regular height maps and stuff. But yeah, today, like Alex said, we will be doing world composition. Now, one of the biggest things about world composition, and I've seen a lot of questions, and it's not a bad thing, and it's actually kind of cool to see people reaching for the stars, so to say. They want to make really large open world games. One that pops in my head that I've been playing recently is Legend of Zelda, right? It's a beautiful game, huge world, really large view distances.
So big you can't render everything at once, so you need something like this.
Exactly. And that game does a really good job of making it look like there isn't much going on in the back end when you're walking towards like something really far away, but it's handling a lot of detail, loading in higher detail as you get closer. And in essence, world composition handles that. So essentially, in definition, and now what you guys can do is we're going to follow along. I have this little printout, and I've highlighted some stuff. I'm going to constantly kind of be checking back to it, and like I will actually annotate and read a little bit of this, so you guys can follow along in a linear fashion, because this is straight from our documentation. So go here. I'll show you really quickly.
Throw this in the chat too.
Yeah. Hold on. I know this isn't the active screen here, but Unreal Doc. That's like one of the first ones. So I'll just bring this over here really quickly. And I'll just show you guys really quick like where to find this, and that'll help. Maybe. It's weird. World composition. Cool. And then there we go. So this needs to go away. There we go. Cool. So we're going to follow sort of in a linear fashion. So we'll go from, I've already created a blank project, and what we'll do is I'll just show you how to enable it, and then the tools. Familiarize yourself with the actual tool. We're not going to get into super granular stuff. I know one of the questions on the forums was, landscape proxies, and that's something that I'm not super familiar with. I'll show you how to just like start working with that, but aside from that, like the stream title says, this is sort of a getting started high level deal. So this is just familiarizing yourself with world composition. Yeah,
there's definitely going to be some tips in there that might be helpful to everyone, but this is mostly for beginners.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, this is going to be more of a beginner thing. So what we're going to do, and what you can do, is just create a new blank project, right? So go ahead and do that now. And what you want to do is the default level that's loaded. If it's not enabled already by default, you want to enable show this tab World Settings. So what you need to do is you can go, if it's not there, go to Window, and all the way at the bottom there's World Settings, right? And you can expose that, and this is exactly where you'll enable world composition. Now, world composition by definition, this is where I'm going to read it off, designed to simplify managing large worlds. One of the goals is to avoid using, this is one of the most important parts about world composition, is how it handles level streaming and loading levels and information. So avoid using a persistent level to store streaming information. And the reason we do that is because it becomes a bottleneck when you have a lot of levels, you're handling a lot of information, And by default, how Unreal handles when Unreal Composition or World Composition is disabled is using a persistent level, and then you have streaming levels that use that to stream in, right? And like the documentation suggests, this can become a bottleneck. Another advantage of using World Composition is if you have a large team or multiple level designers, and it allows you to sort of, in a non-linear fashion, work with separate levels and sort of not be able to mess with the other level designer who's working on a totally separate level. So that's really awesome. So yeah, go ahead and once you create your new blank level or whatever, go ahead and go to World Settings and World Composition. Now what you'll notice, you know what, here, I think I'm just going to show them. I think it'd be easier to just go from, that is a test project, I can always open it whenever, but I feel like it'd be better to show you guys.
Everyone's going to be jealous that I have like 417 on there and stuff, but that's just the GitHub pull, by the way. If you see that, it's literally the same thing you get if you pull off GitHub.
It's not real. So yeah, as you can see, I already have the World Comp stream here, but I'm gonna walk you guys through this quick process because there is a little caveat right when you enable World Composition, and it'll tell you if that default level isn't saved. I think when you create a new level, it's just called untitled, and you actually can't enable World Composition until you save that level. So I'll show you that prompt. So World Composition stream. Let's just do that. All right, create project. Awesome. So I'm pretty sure, yeah, I excluded starter content. We don't need any of that stuff. It's just a blank project. Do we have any questions yet?
Oh yeah, we actually.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we've got questions. Actually, just a really quick one that you can probably answer off the top of your head, really fast. What is the difference between world composition and level design? Because they are very different things.
Oh yeah.
But they are related.
Yeah, they are related. So world composition is just a tool for level designers, right? And level design is a, it's a profession. This is going from,
like a larger overarching design idea versus world comp, which is kind of specifically for stitching together.
It's a tool used for people who are level designers or environment artists if they know the tool, and you're able to essentially, like you said, stitch things together so you can work on multiple levels. Now for example, and this came up in the forums, biomes, right? Let's say I was working on Zelda. That'd be cool, but it's not going to happen because it's already been made, right? But let's say I was tasked with working on the, I think it's called Death Mountain, like the volcanic area. Now, in a world composition sense, what I could do is enable world composition, and I'm assigned to work on the Death Mountain area, right? And then we have another level designer who's assigned to work on, Kakariko Village or whatever it may be. We can both work simultaneously in the same project, source control and all that fun stuff. But I can work in the same level without having to mess with his stuff, and then we can kind of just snap it together and see how that transition works. And we can work together as level designers to have that transition work well.
Yeah, not step on each other's toes. Also, you're totally caught up in Zelda, I can tell.
I know. Well, yeah. No, I've been playing it. Yeah, I've been playing, like we were talking about before the stream. I've been playing Paragon a good bit recently, but yeah, my roommate got the Switch, and Zelda's just talk about open world beautiful games. I still have yet to be dumbfounded by that game. Just every little feature that I keep discovering, it's amazing.
It's great design.
I'm really excited that we're working with them. That's an incredible. So we've created a new. Notice how it says untitled here at the top, right? When I go to try enable world composition, it'll say, hey, please save your level to disk before enabling world composition. So all you have to do is say, the hotkey for this is Control-Alt-S, and it's save level as, and I'm just gonna name this world comp map or whatever. And this is actually, so this is actually considered our persistent level, right? But the persistent and how world composition works, it's actually looking in folders and not for the levels themselves. And when you make LODs, it actually creates levels of LODs, and we'll go into that a little bit later when you start talking about layers. But essentially what we've got here is now we can go, okay, world composition, now it's enabled. Cool. So if I did have levels loaded before this, so I'll show you guys that, because I'm trying to show you guys, I think the most important thing to take away from this stream is that you're going to come across panic moments with world composition, just because the tool hasn't been touched in a while and it can be a little confusing at times. So being able to understand how the interface works and understand how to correct a mistake, even though you might think it's a mistake and it's just, you just have to remove or unload the level or make the level current, right? So let's just go ahead and say I disable world composition, and I'm going to create a couple new levels. We'll just level 1 and, So you can add new levels from the levels tab here. So go into levels right here, drop down. This is also where, when you don't have world composition enabled, where you control streaming, so you can control it in blueprints or always load it into memory. And you can create new or add existing. So I'm going to create another one real quick, level 2. Awesome. So another quick thing, if it's highlighted in blue, like you see here, that means that is the current level, right? If it's not highlighted and it's gray, if it's not highlighted in blue and it's white rather, that means it's loaded but it's not current. If it's unloaded, which I can't do from here because it's always being it's always how it works without world composition. It's loaded, right? It's ready to be streamed in. So now what happens if I'm going to go back and make persistent level current? If I try and enable world composition, I'll get a small error saying, hey, we noticed that you have already added these levels. So here you go. This is one of those things that you guys might encounter, and don't panic. Take the time to read the message and figure out what's going on. So world composition cannot be enabled because they are already sub-levels manually added to the persistent level. As you saw, sub-levels, right? World composition uses auto discovery, so you must first remove any manually added sub-levels from the levels window. So it's literally as simple as this. You can right-click, control, left-click, which will select multiple, and then remove selected. And removing levels cannot be undone. Proceed. Yes, I am not scared. Enable world composition. Now, when you click back on enable world composition, now it'll tell you, hey, remember that auto discovery thing we have? We're going to do that in your content browser and the folders to find any existing levels, and they're going to be here. There you go, right? They're right here. So all I have to do, now notice that grayed out. See how it's grayed out? That means it hasn't been loaded. I can load and I can unload. Yes, that's fine. And you can also load, make current, and it pulls from the persistent. So that is something that you're going to just have to get used to, is making sure that the persistent actually isn't going to show up in world composition. I haven't even showed you guys the mini map, the actual world composition thing. I'll show you that in a second. But understanding these tabs here, levels and the level details and world composition, being able to navigate that is very important, and it's a good way to avoid panic and messing something up. So now that we've enabled it, and I've kind of gone over levels, layers are kind of be the next thing, but what I'm going to do before that is we're going to kind of switch back over, and I'm going to go into world machine really quickly. So I'm going to minimize this. So you guys now know how to enable world composition. You know what it does. Now what we want to do is essentially export a height map. Now this is and for most of you guys, you can get World Machine, right? You can get the free download and the trial version. The difference between is obviously the full set of features, but the free trial version, you actually can't export a tiled height map, which can, for larger worlds, that's optimal. However, you can create your own tiled height maps in the editor, and I'll show you how to do that. So, and this is one of the big ones that I discovered. I was kind of panicked for a little bit before I did this stream, because it's a question that I've gotten a number of times, and it's one of those things that can really break the flow if you can't fix it, and it's making the seams in between two separate landscapes seamless.
Yeah, that's very
so you
important.
can sculpt on, and it just, that that gap there just disappears, and now they're the same landscape, right? And that's a really big one that I've gotten that, before I started digging into world composition, I didn't really have a grasp on, and now I'm like, oh, I understand, and I'll tell you why in a second. But okay, so now we're in World Machine, right? And this is honestly, when you downloaded the trial version, you open it, this will be what you're given. It gives you like a default little, and we're gonna work with this. So you have these parameters here. It's essentially, you have generators, and you can take like a Perlin noise, and this is what it gives you a preview when you click on it. And you give it essentially parameters and define like the terraces. So for example, just quick, we'll do sharp, and I can change the number of terraces, so I can make it kind of very terraced, and they're actually sharp. Which looks kind of cool. So you can quickly start to, World Machine is a really powerful tool. Just like with every new piece of software, you're just gonna have to learn the interface. But the main thing to take away from this, say you don't wanna learn World Machine, right? You're just like, I don't wanna learn World Machine. I just wanna use it for the tool, what it can give me.
Or you're on Mac and you can't use World Machine
there
because
you go.
it is a Windows specific app.
Yes, that is, thank you for the clarification. So what you want to do is, this is the most important thing right here, the height output, right? This is what's going to generate your height map. So you click on, double click, and I believe maybe you can, right click kind of gives you different options. So double click, and these are important, and I'll tell you why. Unreal Engine deals with RAW 16 or RAW, I believe we can do RAW 8-bit as well, but RAW 16 is what you want to use. And there's some options up here. There's use absolute, you don't want that. Participate when building tiled worlds. That means this height output, when you build it, it will also not only build your regular height map, but it will build the tiled worlds. And we don't have that option, so I'm just going to uncheck it, and then I'm going to check RAW 16. Now, as soon as I check that, you notice it exposed this file name. All I'm going to do is press set, and for ease of access, now this isn't good practice because you want to have, especially when you start making multiple landscapes and you need to keep it organized, make a folder, dedicate it to tiled landscapes or regular height maps or whatever it may be, and output your height maps there, because you can quickly, and with tiled maps, it's actually generating 4 height maps, right? And if you keep outputting tiled height maps, you'll quickly get confused, and you might select one that's just not even related to the one you wanted. So make sure organization is important. So all I'm going to do is, let's just type height map. We'll just call this one regular, just height map. I have one here, regular height map. We're going to ignore that. So save. I'm going to click OK. Now it should have worked. Whoa. Yeah, I'll show you guys that too really quickly. If you want to change where you're sampling from, so essentially World Machine is just taking Perlin noise. I can zoom out at a very far level, and it's just adding like a bunch of noise to it, right? And you're basically picking with this extents box. You go, okay, I want to sample this area right here, and it updates in the viewport, right? So I'll go back here. You want to build it. This is the build button. Build, boom, and it should have outputted it. Output. I don't think that was a word. Outputted. Let's see. All right, I'll just redo it. There we go. Right output to disk. There we go. Hey.
Oh, it's under my personal folder.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
I thought I put it on the desktop.
Is that not it over there then, in the middle of the desktop?
No, it should just be called height map, but we have regular height map. It's the same thing. It's not a big deal.
We didn't make irregular height maps.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay, cool. So what we're gonna do is, oh yeah, I think that's it right there. There it is. Yep, right here. Cool. It just went on the actual active screen. That's awesome. So what I'm gonna do is, this is actually another little tip. So you have these levels in here. There's nothing in here. I kind of want to get rid of them. I was just showing you how to add levels, and this is a kind of not a nuance. This is just how it works. I don't want these levels in here anymore. I can't delete them from this list. They will always be here because it's searching in the content browser for active levels, and it's just going to add it. So I don't want it to be there. There's other ways to hide it from the tile, but that's done. Now notice, sorry, I didn't even show you guys, but I just found these levels in the content browser and deleted them. Now I'm gonna save, sure, awesome. And you'll notice they still exist here, right? Don't panic. Literally just reopen this map and they're gone, right? Totally fine. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna turn off auto exposure, fixed at log 0. Cool. Now I'm gonna go straight to the actual, let's see, levels. This is where you import a tiled landscape, and we'll do that in a second, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new level. Let's call this height map level, just so we know, right? I'm gonna make it current. Actually, I'm gonna load it first, and then make it current, and it highlighted it blue. And here's where I'm gonna show you guys the world composition browser. So the world composition, this UI that we're looking at, and I'll give you the keys at what each one of these. This is mouse cursor position, as you see down here. It's just, you know, as I move around, it updates. This little box right here, since there's nothing in this current level that I have, there's the bounds of the level. That's what we're seeing right here. It's so small. There's nothing there. So it's saying, okay, the bounds is just right here, right? When I add this landscape that I just created, it'll automatically update the bounds, and you'll see that reflected here. So I'm just gonna move this to the side for a second. I'm gonna go to landscape mode. I'm gonna import from file. And this is where you wanna choose the file itself. So go to desktop, and there's regular height map. That's the one we made, height map. Select OK, awesome. It'll have the resolution here, which is, I'll move back to World Machine in a second and show you where that was defined really quickly. But if you're having problems with the data fitting correctly, you can do fit to data and it'll arrange it a little better. So I'm gonna fly out and...
Did that set the resolution for you and everything too?
Well, it reads the resolution from the file itself, and that's where world composition comes into play, where you start to define. You actually have to. So let's say you before you get started. Okay, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Before you get started on world composition and any of your landscape stuff, you need to know and have an understanding of how landscapes work, their sizes work, and also the total size that you're trying to create, for the most part, right? You need to do a little bit of math, and there's some equations out there that will help you handle the resolution so that every time you import, it's correctly snapping and you have like it's clean, you know, and that's very important. But I'll show you guys how to work with that in World Machine in just a second. So as you can see, we have a little preview here of the green grid, and it looks, what you can do, and I've done this before, is you can modify the Z-scale. The Z-scale can sometimes get exaggerated. It'll be accurate, but it'll be exaggerated, and you might want to tone it down. When you have world composition enabled, you can't actually scale the landscape with a widget. You actually have to go in and modify its properties. So when I'm importing this, I'm going to actually set the Z-scale to 50, just because I know it's kind of aggressive. And now all I'm going to do is import, and cool. There you go. And see how it's terraced? I'm going to add some, I'm actually going to add it to the persistent. So I'm going to click back on here. I'm going to go skylight. I'm going to add a skylight just to fill in some of these shadows here. Set the details to movable. Awesome. And see how, so as soon as I did that, let's go back here for a second. Remember I told you about the level bounds? As soon as I created and imported that landscape, this is what I see in the world composition browser. Now, if I fly around in the viewport, that little guy, that's me. Woo, right? It's fun.
Very asteroids feel.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so now I can actually manipulate it in here. So I'll move around the imported landscape, or the height map, and here, I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller so y'all can see it change in the editor as well. So you can manipulate it here. Next, we want to look at, now that you have this height map in here, actually I'm going to go back and modify this really quickly, because I'm not a huge fan of not being able to control the brightness of it. So I'm doing something, I'm just adding a cube map, and for those of you who are somewhat new to the engine, I didn't add starter content, right?
Yeah.
No starter content. I need a cube map. I don't have cube maps on hand. But I do.
Engine content.
But I do have cube maps on hand.
Because we put some in there.
Yep, that's right. So show engine content, scale these up so you can actually see, and just choose from your list. I'll just do the daytime, and let's see, where's intensity? Now I can, so I'll just put it at like 0.7. There we go, cool. Nice, and now we get some good detail, and the reason I did that is so I can kind of see the detail from above as well. Kind of helps. So cool. All right, I'm gonna go right back to World Machine really quickly because we were talking about the resolutions, and that's pretty important. So I'm just gonna overlay this really quickly and show you guys, maybe. Thank you. So world commands, right? You got World Machine open, and you're like, I have my calculations, beep boop, you know, I know exactly what I need. How do I define that when I output this height map? So what I'm gonna do is project world parameters, and remember that resolution when I import it said 513 by 513. That's this right here. There are some very important things you also have to keep in mind, but I don't think it's here because it's not. We're not working with a tiled, and I think it's highlighted here. Let's see, mini map, landscape snapping. First time we talked about bounds, dragging the levels. Let's see. Aha, that's it. Okay, so when you start working with tiled landscapes in World Machine, and I think we do this internally, this is how landscapes work. We share a row of vertices in between components, and it's essentially the same way how tiled landscapes work. And there's an option in World Machine called Share Edge Vertices, and you want to enable that. There's another tab in here which isn't present at the moment. You want to enable that so that when you start snapping, it's clean. So world commands, awesome, very important. And then real quick, excuse me, parameters. So you have build options as well. These are, you know, just different things to get you comfortable with World Machine. I think that is enough on World Machine. I'm just going to go ahead and close it. No, don't save. Okay, we're back here. World composition, right? Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys let's get you guys familiar with this really quickly. So I have a key here, and if you have the documentation open, I'll show you that. Essentially, this number represents world origin. These are your layers, and layers can be layers are used for LODs for levels, and any level that is in that layer. So I'll just show you. So anything that's in an uncategorized layer can be controlled. Level streaming can be controlled, or the streaming distance rather, can be controlled in blueprints. If it's not in, or if it is in a layer, you actually create a new layer, you define the streaming distance, and then you just press create. So let's just say SD for streaming distance, let's say 50,000. Let's just say 50, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do create. Now, to assign any level to that layer, you right-click it here. So I'm going to actually make this current first, and then I'm going to assign to layer. So it's you can assign one to uncategorized, or you can, you know, the whatever layer you've created. Now, don't freak out. As soon as I press this, Alex, don't freak out.
Okay, I'm freaking out though. What's going on?
Oh God, you freaked out.
I did.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's over. So notice now it's not. Now when it's not in the uncategorized, it's gone. It's disappeared. Great. Now it's there. Don't worry.
Okay. So,
yeah,
so when you click,
I had a feeling
button,
you were going to panic. Yeah.
All right. I was scared. I'm glad you're here for me.
Yeah. So I'm going to move it back to uncategorized, and it's there. Awesome. So that's a way to deal with. So if there is no level in that layer, when you reopen this world composition browser, that layer will be gone. It automatically goes, hey, no one's using this. Let's get rid of it. And as proof of concept, let's hope, right? Let's save this. Boom. Oh, I was right. Yes, I love when that happens. That layer's gone, right? So you can't edit or delete layers, but you can take levels out of those layers, reopen your map, and those layers are gone. So also, don't panic with that.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll try not to.
Okay.
Chat's totally panicking.
Oh yeah, I could tell. I can feel their anxiety.
Sorry, Chad.
Okay, so we kind of familiarized. This is the name of the level. I think I got a little key here, just so I don't mistake anything. It's obviously the last one in the stack, right? There we go.
Like
Layers.
some wind blows in here and just knocks you.
Yeah, and then I'm like,
waiting for
wait,
it.
no, where is it? I don't know what to do. So yeah, world origin. Let's see. Yep, name of the map, layers. These are obviously, I'll show you the tiles once we get there. 6 is marquee selection. So this is sometimes, this will tell you what's selected. Make current, there we go. That's weird. Okay, marquee, that's interesting. Might have to look into that one. And then 7 is just, let's see, world size, the size of your total world. And those are pretty apparent. You'll just have to familiarize yourself with this. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to import a tiled landscape. We've done a regular height map, right? And that was cool. I'm going to go back to that. I'm actually going to unload this level, and also don't panic again. It might disappear on us. It might not. And I'm just going to reopen it, and it's still there. That's totally fine. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go to the levels drop down in the levels tab and import a tiled landscape. This is, you would have done this in World Machine earlier if, I showed you how to do that, and you can figure it out. It's really not that difficult. Select your height maps, and this is gonna sort of like a coordinate system. So it's X0, Y0, and you can actually define how the naming convention works, so you can make it more easily readable for you. The default works for me, it makes sense, right? X0, Y0 is top left, X0, Y1 top right, X1, Y0 bottom left, X1, Y1 bottom right. And there is a caveat to working from World Machine to UE4. And I've gotten mixed results, and I get the best results when I export out of World Machine, I don't flip the Y, and I let Unreal handle the flipping. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna select these guys. These are my tiles, right? Open. It's immediately gonna go import configuration. Okay, this looks to be the best, and you can change it, but remember, the more components, and this goes back to the landscape stream, the more components you have in your landscape overall, generally the more expensive it's going to cost, because each component is a draw call. So you want to be careful with that. So I'm going to choose the least amount of components, and it works pretty well. Landscape scale, you can change the scale if you would like, and the material. I'd like to give an apology. I'm not going to be going into materials just because it can get really involved. And this stream is, as we know, it's just handling the high level stuff. And I could show you guys how to, apply a material via world, layer blending and weight maps and stuff. But I figured if I was going to get into that,
that's its own stream.
Yeah, that's its own thing.
Yep,
exactly.
Definitely.
So I figured I'd just kind of leave that one alone and just show you the tool itself. So there we go, import tiled. How are we doing on time?
We're at 36 minutes.
Okay, 2:36, cool. So we've got it in here. Tile coordinates offset, we're cool. Flip, this is that flip tile, right? So I'm gonna import, leave that checked, import. Awesome. That doesn't help me at all, right? That's just like some gray thing that isn't helping me. You know why it's gray, Alex? Do you know why?
I don't know. Why is it gray?
Because it's not loaded.
Ah!
Ho! There it is.
Okay, so you
cool.
right-click and choose load to load.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna do something here. So, I'm just gonna I'm gonna show you a trick. Since I don't want that anymore because it's not being referenced, and I don't want it to be in my face. If I was using it, I could just dock it and hide it or whatever. But what I'm gonna do is make current. I'm gonna save.
So you right click, make current, save.
And now I'm gonna reopen this map and watch what happens to that. It's gone,
there
right?
you go.
It's gone. So we're totally cool. I'm now back here. Awesome.
The origin is of course loaded.
Yep. And we're gonna load that,
By
and now it's back.
By default, and then yep, there we go.
Yep, there you go.
Very nice.
So what I'm going to show you guys is another cool, so I'm gonna actually recenter it. Snaps right to that origin. Awesome, right? We're good. I hear some laughter, which is always good. So we have our tiled landscape, right? And I'll show you guys what it looks like. It's this is intense, right? This is not what I intended. So I made a mistake, right? And that's okay. I'm not even gonna worry about modifying it. I'm just gonna re-import it. So all I'm gonna do is go unload. That's totally fine. Go into my content browser, and what you'll see is remember I told you how world composition looks in folders, right? It made a folder with those outputs as an individual level. And I'm just gonna go and delete those. There's no references, delete, boom, save all. And I'm just gonna reopen this map. I know it seems a little redundant, but now look, they're gone, right? They are out of the way, they're out of the world composition browser itself. And I'm just gonna retry. So I'm gonna go, boop, I know exactly what I want. Let's go here, 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 open. Now, here's what we wanna mess with, the scale. I'm gonna set it to, it was pretty aggressive. I'm gonna do 40. That's a weird number, but let's see what happens. All right, cool, and now it's gray again. Yet again, don't panic. So what I'm doing here, if y'all aren't, sorry, I'm kind of naturally going through this without explaining it. Yeah, so you can click, and you can click, control click if you want, or you can click the top, click the bottom, holding shift, and it'll select all in between. And now I'm just gonna move, no I'm not, I'm gonna load them first. And now I'm gonna move them here.
Oh, that's an important note. You have to load them before you can alter
yes,
their
they won't even be, they'll be visible, like you notice how it was gray, right?
You did air quotes, but we weren't on camera for that one.
Okay, I did air quotes.
Visible.
Yeah, sorry. Air quotes were there when I said visible. But what happens is, now that I've changed the scale, notice that it's not as aggressive, but I probably could have dumbed it down even more, probably like 25. And these are things you're just gonna have to experiment with and figure out. And this is why you kind of wanna sometimes work with like a really small tiled landscape at first and just get a feel for it. So I'm gonna bring this back over. Here's something that's really cool that I discovered, and well, discovered through reading the documentation, right? If you're having trouble manipulating your landscapes, and let's say I move this over here. Now what should happen is, because these are all using the same landscape size and the same resolution and stuff, when you move, they should be snapping to the correct distances. So when I snap this back, it'll snap and be seamless, right? If you try and create a new landscape, let's say, new landscape at a different size, where are you? Selection tool, new landscape, and I'm not going to import. I'm going to create new, and this will not snap. This won't snap correctly to this landscape because it's a different size. It's using a different number of components, and it won't snap in this. Well, it won't work. So you have to make sure that you're working with the correct sizes, which it goes back to plan ahead. Know the resolutions that you're going to be working with.
This actually brings up a good point. Chat was asking. We have a couple questions out of chat about
what's
this.
up?
Since you brought it up, might as well just knock them out here.
Yeah.
So when you're designing the scale and resolution of these, when do you want to think about making smaller scale landscapes and stitching a bunch together versus making larger ones? When do you make those trade-offs and those choices?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. And that, unfortunately, a lot of that falls on the amount of content, the actual scale. Like, what are you going for? Are you trying to make Skyrim, and you're doing really high detail, high altitude level of elevation changes, like really intense stuff? Or are you making more of a, it's all going to be on what's going to what's going to cost you more to make, and how are you going to handle that? So like, let's say I was going to make Paragon MMO, right? That the rendering, it's a beautiful game, but there's a lot of really high detailed stuff in there, and working with really high detailed meshes, you might want to contain that in smaller portions so you can have good solid levels of detail when you're up close. And that immediately pertains to larger worlds, right? If you're going to have, let's go back to Zelda, where, it's a cel shaded look, it's really populated, there's grass everywhere. But, if you're not going to have those really intense, demanding calls on the CPU, and your GPU is doing fine, you can sort of work on a larger scale, and that'll be easier on the CPU because you have less components, right? So it's going to be up to the content you're working towards, I guess the scale of your idea, and number of people on your team. How many level designers you're working with. There's a number of things that define what's going to be a better trade-off working with larger, lesser components, or more and smaller, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think when you said CPU and GPU trade-off, I didn't really realize the components individually, that's CPU. So the more small ones you have demands more on the CPU versus the larger ones are going to have more to render as you've got them all not
so
called.
Just the actual landscape component, the individual components themselves is a draw call on the CPU, right? So the less you have, generally, air quotes again, the better performance, right? Now, again, this all falls back to everything I mentioned, but also the hardware you're targeting and the hardware you're working with. That's making games is hard. And, it's a lot of it has
Very
to do,
true.
gauging what you have, the things you are working with, the tools you have, and what you're making it for or towards, right? And that's not always easy to figure out. So you have to sort of experiment, and that's what I really love about game design, is that it's always a give and take. It's always a push and pull, and you'll always be like, oh man, I could have done this better next time, right? And through process of elimination, you figure that stuff out. So hopefully that answered your question, Chad.
Yeah, I think that knocked it out for two different questions that were very related.
Cool, awesome. Well, cool. So we scaled it down. Let's see.
You stitched them all together. You got to add one next to another.
Oh yeah. We'll do that. We'll do that one. I'll show you guys. This one's really cool because I was like, while I was experimenting and preparing for the stream, I was having sort of a headache with moving stuff around. Especially, and we haven't even touched it yet, and I'll touch it lightly, but it can kind of start to confuse you. World origin rebasing, and that is something I haven't even mentioned yet. It's basically, in its definition, when you go outside of the world level, the world max scale, it will shift the world origin, essentially, so you can stay within the world max scale, so you're not limited to the max size of the world. What it does, in a technical sense, is as soon as you move the player outside of that world max, right, it's going to add an offset. It adds an offset vector to all the registered actors in that level, which means, let's say you move, I'll show you guys once we get to it, but like, let's say you move out this way, right, and your level will actually, the origin will shift, and everything registered in this level will have an offset added to it. And those offsets are stored, and you can modify those. However, the absolute positions are never thrown away. So don't freak out. The positions themselves, where they are actually in the world, are still there. It's just the relative positions when you add the offset, when you start using world origin shifting. And world origin shifting is something that a lot of people try and use, and they don't understand, and it can quickly confuse you. So you want to be very careful, and you want to have a reason for using it, right? I mean, I was looking last night at the Landscape Mountains project, and that project is huge, right? And they're not using
kilometers.
Yeah, but it's not they're not using world origin shifting. They handle everything correctly, and it's massive. And like, if you guys are working on something bigger than that, I'd like to see it because like, then it gets into the MMO, and MMO is like, okay, if you want to have a full, like, one good example would be Assassin's Creed Black Flag, right? You have
It's not an MMO.
Well, yeah, no, no, yeah, it's not. But I'm saying like the size of the world, and you wanted everything to be there, and you're sailing around, right? And you go outside of the world bounds. Are they laughing?
No, no.
Okay, you go outside, and it shifts the world, right? It shifts it to the location, so you're still like cruising around. You don't have any loading, nothing, none of that stuff. So what I'm gonna do is, in regards to moving stuff around, is I want this tile right here to be the parent, and when I make things a child of another level, if I move that parent, those childs inherit that position. So all I have to do, and this is a click and drag, like a lot of things in the engine. I'm gonna take this guy, I'm gonna click and drag it here. I'm gonna do that with that one, and same thing here. I'm gonna make this the current level, and this is where I'm gonna get you guys with some of the wow factor here. I'm gonna select that level, and when I move it, it's moving everything associated with all the children, all the chillin'. So,
Got him.
yeah. So this is a great way to organize, right? Let's say you've imported your tiled landscape, and you're like, oh man, I need to move this around in the world and situate it. But I don't want to have to move each individual component. Parent and child, move, magic. Awesome. So, and let's say you're done and you don't need those to be children anymore. You want to work on those individually. You can actually, obviously, sorry, it won't be updated here. I'm going to select the landscape. There you are, cool. So I can still move and hide individual components or tiles. So as you can see, but they're parented, or they're children of the actual parent. So move this around, and it moved in the viewport as well. Oops, sorry. Cool, so in order to clear that, all you have to do is click on anything that's a child, right click, and you can do clear parent link, boom, cleared, right? And now now when I move this, it's not gonna shift all the other ones with it. So that's an awesome little feature. Okay, so here's the one that's really fun, and this is the one that I was talking about, where I was like, wow, I can't believe that I haven't discovered that prior. And I've had this question before. I'm gonna right click on one of these landscape tiles, if you will, and I'm actually gonna make it the current, just so I know I'm working in that level. Right click it, right? And if you scroll all the way down here, add adjacent landscape level.
I like how it's like you see the X minus X, but it's like the arrows.
This is it. Yes, helpful. That was super helpful, because I was like, how do I know what X plus? Like, I have a pretty good handle on the coordinate system, but like I don't really understand what's going on here. So it just gives you an arrow, and it lets you know it'll be added to the right of this. It'll be added to the top of this. It'll be added to the left or the bottom. So I want to add it to the right, because I can only add it, right or bottom. If I add top or left, it'll get in the way of this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click, add adjacent landscape. Let's do positive X. And I'm gonna go like this, and we'll name this added landscape. Now, as you can see, it added another landscape here, and I'm gonna move this over here, and
oh no, yeah.
It's totally, how is that ever gonna how am I gonna work on that and have it look even remotely like the same landscape?
I've never heard that question before.
Yeah, me neither. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna reparent this stuff just for organizational purposes and show you guys how well this works. So I'm gonna click and drag, boop, click and drag, 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 awesome. Now, when I move this, this should also, let's make this current, just to double check, that one landscape should move. There it goes, cool. So it's moving, it's moving in tandem with it. So what I'm gonna do is now we have this added landscape. And I believe all I have to do is go into the persistent, since it's all in the persistent itself. I'm just gonna double check here. Yeah, see, so I can sculpt. Oh yeah, here we go. So you're like, oh no, how do I fix this? Since this landscape was added as a adjacent landscape to that, it's actually going to count as, hey, this is also considered the same landscape. So, boom. That seam is gone. Obviously, we would want to fix this, and I will do that for you guys. Flatten. I'm going to pick a source here, so let's just bring it back down this way. And with a little bit of magic, and that little seam right here, there's another little landscape trick that we went over in the first stream, but see these lines here? That's basically telling me, hey, you need to rebuild your lighting. This looks poopy. I'm just gonna go like this, details. This is a quick fix. This isn't an actual fix. Just set it to movable, and you can actually set it back to stationary and it'll go, but I'm just gonna leave it movable because the shadows are a little bit nicer. So cool, look, now there's no seam, and you can, I'll show them this too because I was messing around with this. So now if I'm like, okay, this looks silly, like I have this really nice high detailed, landscape here, and then it goes flat. Well, if you're working with biomes, that's great because this can now be mountains to beach, right? And you can do that. But what if you wanted some more mountains and you didn't want to import another landscape? This is a tool that I don't use as much, but it is incredibly powerful.
Oh yeah, very good.
So the problem is, which I still have yet to figure out, when you use this, the brush is kind of in the way, so just set the brush to 0 so it's not there, and it'll just default to 1, you just can't see it. So what I'm going to do, this is the copy and paste guy.
You just box up whatever you like.
Yeah, box it up, put it in a little present to be sent over to another landscape. I'm just going to make sure it's all being encompassed there. And what I'm going to do is copy data to Gizmo, and as you can see, it's taken that data. I'm going to slide it over here and make sure it's there, and I'm going to just press Control V because it's copied it. Let's kind of bring this up a little bit. Yeah, Control V, and now I'm just going to clear Gizmo data.
And there it is.
And there you go. And you can continually do this with, obviously it's a little aggressive, and I sampled one of the more aggressive parts of the landscape, but this is how you can make mountainous regions by sampling, copying, sampling over copying, and then just kind of manipulating it a little bit. So this is a tool that not too many people are really that aware of. They're like, oh, the sculpting doesn't give me what I want, and it's, well, have you really experimented with all the tools and figured out like the capability of the landscape tool? It's quite powerful if you know what you're working with. So that is essentially, now what I can do is I'm going to bring this guy over, right? And it's here in the world as well. So now if I move this, it's going to give, and just ignore those. That's just a level bounce. So yeah, now we have you can essentially create your own tiled landscape in this manner, right? Create a new landscape, give it a size. You're like, okay, I've modeled it, looks cool, this and that. I want another one. I don't want to import a height map. I don't want to import a tiled landscape. I want to add an adjacent landscape, and there you go.
And Jonas Mulgard has a question in the chat about that gizmo you're just showing off. Could you scale that down after you've copied and then make like a tiny version?
Yeah. Let's find out.
Yeah.
This is how you do
off
it
the
right
top
here.
of my head, I can't remember.
Yeah,
so
because
maybe you do. But I remember when I first got to when I first picked up UE4 in the early beta days, and one day they added this copy paste landscape thing in there, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. I don't.
Why did you guys put this in here? Thank you, Jack Porter.
Yeah,
I assume
right.
It was him. He did most of this stuff.
Always assume that guy's a wizard.
Yeah,
with
Jack
landscapes.
rocks. We've only ever gotten him on one stream because he lives in Korea, and so at 3 a.m. is this
trying to coordinate with that guy. I send him a message. I'm like, I'm like, hey man, like, can you answer? And he's like, doesn't respond, and I'm like, oh, that's right.
Yep.
He's in a totally different world.
Probably asleep.
All right, so let's try it. So copy data to Gizmo. Cool, got it. Now I'm going to scale it down. And sure enough, watch this. I have a strong feeling that this is gonna work. Let's Control V, and let's just clear. And there you go.
Yep. Yeah, it made like a tiny
Look,
little.
it's literally that
tiny little
same
pile of it.
Yep, right there.
And that's cool.
That answers that question.
Yeah, that totally knocks that one out
Okay,
of the park.
cool.
Cool.
Yeah, we're learning together. Look at that. So, let's see what else we have not covered. Layers, we kind of did
We're getting a little bit tight on time.
Okay,
Just
okay.
heads up.
That's actually good. World origin shifting is what I'll show you guys really quickly, because that's something that I know you guys want to know about, and I'll probably be able to show you how quickly it can confuse and scare you. It is a powerful tool, but like I said, you want to make sure you know what you're doing. So I'm actually going to clear these. You know what? I'm going to actually, yeah, let's clear these parent links. So clear, cool, they're on level. What I'm going to do is, so to enable world origin rebasing or shifting, go to the world settings and the drop down, and it's right here. Enable world origin rebasing.
Are you going to click that?
I don't know. Oh, I did.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, that was tough. So now what'll happen is, and you'll see this almost immediately, I'm going to click on, when I make one of these levels current, what you'll see is that current level, I think for the most part, it should snap to the origin. So make current. Yep. See how that works? So persistent level is just persistent, right? It's just there. It's actually not even being shown here. I like to look at the persistent level in regards to world composition as just like the container. And the container is what allows you to shift along this grid where you have different landscapes and stuff. So if you can think about it in that way, that might help. So if I make current, awesome. World origin right here. This tells you the world origin. Now what I'm going to do, let's show you this really quickly. I'm going to go make current on this one, and since they're not parented, it might shift the landscape. There we go. So world origin shifting, right? It shifted the current landscape or current level to the world origin. And I believe what will happen is if this is current, I kind of want to move this. And if we move it far, okay, here we go. So I know it's tiny, but see this yellow line here? That's that's the max. That's the world origin max. And as soon as I go outside of this, you'll see this shift. Outside, let go, shift, right? So it's shifted. This is still where it should be relative to this, right? It's still there.
Yeah.
The world origin has shifted to account for this, right? And the problem in my eyes with this is I don't understand it well enough to work with it effectively. It does work. And as you can see, I can bring my stuff right back and it's fine. And I could actually, I'm wondering if I can select, let's do it this way. Let's make this the current. Let's click multiple, parent them. Cool, they're parented. Now that this is the current and I have this selected, now when I move this, the whole thing will go with it, right? And that's important. This is where parenting and stuff comes into play. I'm about to go outside the world max. Uh-oh, I wonder what's going to happen when world origin shifting. Oh, player went to world origin and we're fine again, right? And this allows you to stay within the world max. And that is the extent of world origin shifting that I've worked with. I wish I knew more, but I just haven't worked with it enough. I'm not working on my own MMO at the moment, so I could. You're right, I could. It would just, I'd need a number of level designers to help me out. But in essence, that's pretty much it, you guys. I mean, I showed you some tricks, ways to not panic when
Very
you're
important.
working with this. Yeah, I'm gonna
Don't
actually.
panic. In big friendly letters on the back of the engine is where we need to put that some of the credits.
There is something I didn't show you guys, but it's really simple and easy to understand. It's the level details. It actually just shows you the position, the parent package name, which you can select here, the Z order. You can hide this tile in a view in the world view. So if you don't want to see it, you can actually hide it. And then the number of LODs. This is something I didn't touch on, but and I was updated. You can create your own, and this is for the layers themselves. Remember I was talking about these layers here that you add. You add a layer, you can set a level of detail. So let's say 2. As soon as you press 2, these are exposed. I want at distance of 10,000, I want it to, the actual simplification of the level itself, static mesh details percentage down to 70%, landscape, all this stuff. You have options to bake this. This starts to get into more granular stuff, but once you get these down and you have them solidified, you can set these LODs into layers, which makes it so when you have those far view distances, I can see Death Mountain way off in the distance, and it's an LOD of 4, and it still looks decent, and I'm controlling it, right? And that's the main gist. But yeah, that's essentially it, guys. I hope I didn't.
We have
scare.
a couple of questions, and then we're just a little bit over time, so I want to knock out a couple questions really fast, and then we'll get out of your hair. But thank you all so much.
I don't have hair.
Oh yeah, so by the way,
I got.
nice haircut.
If you guys didn't know, yeah.
Yeah, oh no, Chet totally noticed.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah.
cool. It's
So
the summer. Summer's coming.
Let's see here. So first up, I think you probably already covered this, but how do you exclude levels from world composition? Like you said, it's kind of auto grabs all the things, but if you want it to be like not you though, you're
yeah.
different.
So what you want to do is you unload, and you can actually set the visibility as well. So there's 3 different states. There's loaded, there's current, and then there's unloaded. And then, like I was showing you in the right here, the levels detail. If you don't want it to be seen in this, so I selected it here.
Hey, Clint.
Hide in tile view.
So
So
that's,
yeah, go
under
to
the levels?
and you can go to if you're in the levels tab and you don't know where the levels detail is, there's a button for levels detail, and reversely, there's a button for levels tab. So they go back and forth. So levels detail, select whatever you don't want to see, and you can do hide in tile view. Let's go. There you go. I think that answers it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Let's see here. Next question here. In 008544180T asks, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that as if it's a word. Can you show where the LOD options for creating whole level LOD proxies would be if you had Insta LOD/SimplyGone installed?
Yeah, that's what this was that I was showing you guys.
That's what that is.
Yeah, the LOD settings.
Okay.
And I think I responded to someone on the forums. Apologies, because I did think I gave you incorrect information because I wasn't aware of this at the time. But we integrated our own mesh reduction in 4.14, and I believe that came with this as well. So we have I think the documentation is just outdated. You don't need the SimplyGone
static mesh one.
Yeah, it's integrated, and that's what it uses the same the same tool to create LODs. So this is what you would do. This is how you would go about doing it. I'm not going to do it straight up, but you just do generate. So I defined generate, right? Exporting landscape actors. And what will happen is now you'll go, okay, in content, look at this. Boom, output LOD. It gives you the material that it's using. It gives you here's the tile. This is actually pretty cool. I haven't done this very often. So this is your LOD, and it gives you and its output as a level because that's how it handles it. And that's where you take the level and you put it into a layer, and then it has that streaming distance where it streams in that LOD. Magic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see here. Did we already cover lighting levels like this with world lighting?
Is he talking about?
It was just vague, kind of how would I implement like lighting on worlds this large.
What I do is, unless you're going to be doing, I put my light actors in the persistent, like in the main level. So it's going to be illuminating everything, no matter what's, right? If you want thing, if you want lights specifically to be in specific levels, then do that. This is where making sure you're working in the, sorry, I hit my mic. Making sure you're in the right level by like make current, and then working in that level and adding lights and checking to make sure that you're doing that correctly. Because if that level streams out and you have a directional light that is supposed to be illuminating your entire world, and it's not there anymore, that means the rest of your world isn't going to be there. So I put all my directional light and my skylight are actually in the persistent. So no matter what I add, it'll be there, right?
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Let's see here. Next question up. This is kind of an interesting one, but it's more of a question of how would you go about doing this. But someone was asking, how could you transfer something like real-world satellite data from Google Earth? And I mean, as long as it exports as a height map.
Oh, you know what? That actually reminds me of this really quickly to show you guys. Terrain.party. This is exactly what this is going to check this out.
I'm really glad that, okay, cool.
That's
what that is.
This is what you do. Yeah, you can create,
cool.
So it has your kilometers, and you can increase the size, and then you go, so you can actually type in, and I did this earlier. I grew up on the Outer Banks near the beach.
Oh, dude, I love the Outer Banks.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Search, boom, it should bring me right there. Hey, I grew up right. I'm not going to show you guys exactly where I grew up.
Yeah, we'll go there.
Yeah,
clearly.
but I actually right around here, Southern Shores area. So what you do is you just this little cloud guy, and you can save it. But then you actually, I think that's all you got to do is export. And then what do you want to call this area? Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Awesome. And it went somewhere, and it actually generates 3 to 4 different types of height data. And that height data, you want to use the most accurate. I can't remember which. They're all different types of file names. But just open it up in Photoshop, whatever. Look at which one you think would be the best. You can import that. So I can import my hometown. You could literally design the entire world. I don't suggest it because it would be really heavy. But you could export individual tiles of the entire world if you wanted to, and remake the Earth in world composition.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
We have people in chat talking about how they've actually, a couple of people have apparently used this before and thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't use it that often because World Machine, I like procedural stuff, and World Machine does a great job of that, and I like regular landscape, sculpting and stuff. It's fun to me. So. And
we're not going to get into super deep detail on it because you and I had talked about this before. We definitely want to address it. These tool sets and features do work for online systems for replication. Like you can replicate them. These were actually designed by Jack Porter for a few games that were coming out in Eastern Asia that they needed larger world support, and so they actually added this in for those.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like quieter games that I don't know if I even remember the titles of. It was a while back.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, and so they're definitely capable of doing it, but we'd have to create a whole stream around making sure that we cover replication properly, and then I'd want to have Jack Porter on for that one for sure.
Yeah,
so
I would definitely want him to be handling that.
That's why we didn't cover multiplayer today, but we did cover how to implement everything else.
Yeah, so there is, on the documentation for this person asking the question, we do have 2 points on how to do this. Implement, so how to work around this, implement your own server solution. So, and most MMO licensees do this, but you could also implement some layer between clients and Unreal dedicated servers, which will transform shifted absolute positions from the clients and route them to the right dedicated server. So basically having a dedicated server set up. This is where I would say if you can avoid using world origin shifting, it's going to make multiplayer a lot easier because we say specifically in the documentation too, if you disable world origin shifting, you can run a tiled world with a dedicated server. Dedicated servers will load all distance dependent levels, and each connected client will work as usual. So it'll basically be on the client to handle that instead of the server, and so, which is a lot, it's a lot easier for networking just generally. So yeah, I wish I would have know. I wish I knew more about multiplayer, but I just don't.
Because that does come down to be a replication.
Yeah, I just
live
don't.
stream.
I don't have that. So
yeah. This is important, and I keep having to put this out on Twitter. It's you don't always make your artists do net code. That's not always like the best idea when you're like working on the
don't
game.
give them
get a lot of people. Maybe not always like unless your artist is really good at netcode for some reason.
For some reason, he used to be a hacker back in the day.
Yeah, like they were really good, but yeah, generally separating jobs out, and again, that's why you want to have lots of different jobs.
And that's why world composition is used for larger teams. You have people dedicated to networking and replication, and they can work with the level designer to understand world composition so they can integrate their own solution.
All right, and so that's about what we have for time today. These were we had a few more questions, but if we didn't get to your question today, make sure to come to forums.unrealengine.com, come to the events section, and you'll see a forum post for this live stream where we were taking questions and answering them there. Just want to say thank you all for coming out. We will have an awesome stream for you guys on Thursday also at 2 p.m. So make sure you tune in for that. And thank you so much, Andrew, for coming out. I'm such a jerk. I almost forgot to say thank you to our guest.
It's totally cool. It's totally
really
cool.
Awesome. I'm just so used to hanging out with you.
Yeah, it's been fun. I really appreciate everyone's questions. You guys do a great job of asking me good questions, and I do my best to try and answer them. So I appreciate that.
Yep. All right, so remember to like, follow, subscribe, hit all the little buttons and all the things depending on what social media or form of technology you are watching us on. I know they all have different things, and we're streaming to so many different channels now. Press the buttons.
Yep.
So you'll get updates about Unreal Engine from us, your humble developers.
There you go.
So yeah, we'll see you all next time. Later.
Thank you. All right.